should say hello and welcome everyone to our webinar on reporting, activity reporting and finance reporting. My name is Jenny Thompson and I'm a project advisor at the Joint Secretariat. And I'm here together with...
My name is Christopher. I also work at the Secretariat. And as Jenny said, we're here today to answer your questions that you have in relation to the reporting. So hopefully all of you, to some extent, have seen what you are going to report on, perhaps have a look at our website, or you're even in our monitoring system.
Sounds good. And on that happy note, first of all, I think we can admit a few more participants. And I think we can then start to share our screen because we have prepared a very, very short presentation for you, where we first of all have a few technicalities for you. So we are in Zoom right now. Your cameras, some of them are switched on as I can see, so feel free to keep them switched on so that we can see who is with us. Your microphones are muted on purpose because we just want to present, and then we have prepared Slido for you where you can then ask a few questions. And I just want to inform you that the chat function is also disabled. Plus, I want to let you know that we will record this webinar and put it on our website for a certain amount of time. We move on with the agenda of the day. And so we have already covered the welcome. Then, as I said, I have prepared a very short input about the activity reporting. Christopher has prepared a very short input on finance reporting. But the main purpose of today's meeting, as you have already said, is we want to answer your questions. And on that happy note, we will move on with the next slide. And that is our invitation for you to our invitation to you to join Slido. This is where you are welcome to put all the questions you have. We have already put some from the registration form into Slido. So when you have put in a question, when you registered, they are already covered. If you have more, please feel free to put them in during our short interventions, and we will answer them then afterwards. Then the first thing to do is to introduce you to the reporting workflow. First of all, you need to know that we, as the Joint Secretariat, so the respective project advisors, will start the reporting for you. Each reporting round has to be started from us. And then we start with what is described here on this slide. We have a project managing user that will start the progress reporting package. And then it moves from the project level down to the partner level, where then the so-called partner managing user will prepare both the activity and the finance report. We then move on to yet another level, that is the partner controller level. This is when the controller you have chosen will verify your expenditures. And we also need you again, when the controller has verified your expenditures, to say, yes, now my report is completed. So then the partner managing user needs to press the complete button. Then we move on to yet another level, which is the partner authorized signatory. Now we are at the bottom of the slide, where the partner authorized signatory needs to submit the partner level report to the lead partner again. Then the project managing user needs to put everything together. So basically, work on the project level report. And then the project authorized signatory needs to submit it again to the Joint Secretariat. So it's a process that you all have to go through, and everyone will play a role. And we have two of the main roles presented on this slide now, because those are roles that are involved in the reporting, and it needs a little bit of time to designate those roles. We are talking about the authorized signatory and the partner controller. And I've mentioned them already in my little reporting flow. So to just recap, the authorized signatory is basically someone who is signing off on reports. And the controller is someone who is verifying your costs, your expenditures.
And it's, of course, just to add to what you're saying, Jenny, it's, of course, important to stress that all partners need an authorized signature, and also all partners need a controller. And, of course, you can find guidance on how to do this on our website.
Yeah. We move on to our next slide. It looks very complicated, very easy. It is, though, because this slide is supposed to tell you that every project must submit the first report within 12 months after project approval, and that the first report must include finances. And one additional note is that before you can receive funds from the program, each project must sign a so-called project contract and a partnership agreement. Which leads me to the next slide. Oh, yes, the next slide is already dealing with the activity report. And here I want to highlight that all, and now listen carefully, all call one projects, or call one regular projects, they have a reduced scope for the report. So it is a little bit thinned out, if I may say it that way.
Yeah.
And I will explain what I mean by that. So what call one projects can see in their report at the moment is that they don't have to report on indicators. So when they, for example, reach the output level where they normally are supposed to report on, then they see a little note saying outputs will be editable in the indicator progress module. This module will be available after submission of this report. So this is for the call one projects. When the call one projects have submitted their first report, then, as it states, there will be a so-called indicator reporting module ready for all of our projects, not only call one, but also call two, and at some point also call three, where every project can report on their indicators on a regular basis. This is, I think, the main point to highlight here. Yeah. Every partner can report on indicators in that indicator reporting module, and it will be available also between reports. I think this is the main point I want to make when it comes to the activity reporting. However, I have more slides. Just to give you an idea for the ones that have not been in the online monitoring system where the reporting takes place is, as I mentioned, there are two levels, partner level and project level. Each partner has to report, and that feeds into the project level report. And these are the different sections, I want to call them, that every partner and every project has to report on. And yeah, I don't think there's the need to go through them, but just so that you get an idea. And that leads me actually to the, before we move on to finances, to just make the very short note that the presentation will, of course, be made available also on our website. So you will be able to look at it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have any questions, remember that you can put it in Slido. Once you registered for the event, you already at that point got a link where you could start posting your questions. Otherwise, you will see the QR code and the login details later on when we actually get to answering your questions. In terms of finance report, it looks relatively similar to what we have done in the past. For those of you that have not been with the program in the past, this is all new to you, and you will have, of course, see no changes to what you expected. The finance report is divided into, I'll just let a new one in, is divided into 6 main sections, focusing on some core details in the main section. We have all of our cost categories, that could also be named as budget lines. Then there's a summary section where you need to explain any deviations. And then, of course, there's a funding section. There's a section on state aid if you are providing indirect aid. And then there's a submission section where you can see who has changed what when. And let's take the next one. The main focus that I would like to draw your attention to is what we have here named building the list of expenditures. So in the past, we allowed that expenditures or list of expenditures was an attachment to the reports due to increased requirements from the Commission. Then we have changed the scope a little bit, and we actually think it will also be a benefit to the projects. And now you are asked to create your list of expenditures in our system, item by item. And it has some benefits because it benefits that you can easily relate back to your own accounting system. And this is where we are going to ask you for an internal reference. We're also going to ask you for when this expenditure was paid. If there's any comments to it that could, be handy sometimes in terms of determining to which activities does this expenditure relates to. When you're reporting on staff costs, there's also a drop-down list asking for the calculation method. So was it a fixed percentage? Was it full-time? So forth. Total cost in local currency, VAT, if you're going to claim any VAT from the program, if you're eligible for that, then there's also a designated part for that. And then relating back to the application form, we're going to ask you for award criteria. So if you have a bigger purchase that is above the threshold values for program procurement, then we're going to ask you for the award procedure. And then if a cost relates to an investment that you have defined in the application form, there's also a drop down for that. But this is, for the ones of you that have been with us from the 5B program, this is probably the biggest change in terms of reporting on finances. In terms of conversion into euros, so if you are from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, we are going to ask you to convert your local currency into euros. And for that, the monitoring system will assist you. Go to fact sheet number 11 and see exactly on which date you should obtain the exchange rate. Once you have that, then you can actually put it in, or you should put it in the monitoring system. And then all of the costs that you're going to report in local currency will be automatically calculated and converted into euros. Again, very important. If you have questions, I would say, first of all, go to our website. We have a huge amount of resources, and that encompasses both our program text, it's our fact sheet, so all of our program rules, and then the section called How To Guides, where we have a lot of hands-on tutorials for how is it that we operate our finance report, how is it that we operate the activity reports, how is it that I designate a controller, and so forth. Anything to add?
No.
Perfect.
I think this is actually what we wanted to convey, the main messages.
Exactly.
But
so what we're going to do now is that we're going to switch to Slido, and then you can also see the login details for Slido. So just give us a minute.
That was not even a minute.
That was not even a minute.
Very
that was
good.
bigger than a minute.
Then
Good. And remember, when or before you submit your questions, there are no stupid questions. There will only be stupid answers. So that's on us if we do not answer them correctly or good enough, politely, one would say. So all questions, please go to slido.com, put in the pin and submit your question. And then we will answer as many as we can. And we have some assistants with us today in terms of Sarah Holson that will highlight questions that we will answer. So it'll be visible both to you and to us which question we are going to answer.
Yes.
Yeah. So
shouldn't we?
Let's get cracking.
Yes. Start right away. The first one.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of the first one, I think it was partly covered by the presentation. So the essence of this question is, are we really going to ask you to provide us with an extensive list of all cost items that have incurred in the reporting period? And do we really want you to put it in item by item in the finance report? Or can we accept some subtotals being reported? And it is the first. So of course, we are going to ask you to submit in detail all of the costs that you have incurred.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And we hope that that was a sufficient answer. If not, there's always the possibility to put in a follow-up
Yeah,
question.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
And a
what we're used
follow-up to the follow-up question, if
Yes,
that should
but we're
be
not there
necessary.
yet. Let's see. Maybe it was a good answer.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer the next one as well?
Which kind of evidence would you like to see for work package outputs? And I'm actually thinking perhaps, Jenny, you would be more qualified to answer that one.
Thank you very much. So the question is, so it's a twofold question. You only read out the first part, but the question is which kind of evidence we want to see for work package outputs. First of all, I would like to highlight that it's, of course, very individual from project to project. And when we are talking about outputs, we are talking about pilots or strategies action plans. If I now have to make an example to make an example to make it a bit more concrete, I would say we choose, for example, a strategy that has or that is supposed to be developed in a project. And let's say you are at a certain stage in time where you can report that you have delivered on that strategy. Then, of course, very obviously, it would be that you attach the actual strategy as evidence to the report. Of course, it's not, you don't produce a strategy like that. So you are making progress from one report to the other. I would argue that you are maybe working on certain aspects of that strategy. You are creating certain parts of the strategy. You're doing background work. Then this is some kind of evidence that you can attach. For pilots, for example, it can be anything that is supporting your progress on the pilots. And of course, as I said in the beginning, pilots are very different from each other. When we talk about a physical pilot, then it can even be pictures, I would argue. If it's a living lab, something along those lines, then it can be all kind of documentation. It can be, if it's something digital, it can be screenshots, it can be, just think about how you can support what you're writing in the report with some kind of evidence, so that there is a connection between what you write and what you attach as evidence. I hope that's a more or less sufficient answer.
Yeah, I think it is, but perhaps also just a word or two about, the style. So in terms of...
Oh yeah, that's coming now.
Yeah.
I was only focusing on the first part of the question.
Okay.
Reporting on activities, and the reporting style, I would argue to be as concise as possible. Also, when it comes to reporting throughout the report, it really needs to make sense. So try to explain what you are doing in an easy way in your report. Is there anything?
No, I think that's highly relevant. Also because you are the experts, we are not the experts, but we sort of need to know what you're doing and be able to say that it makes sense.
And assess the progress, basically.
And assess the progress, exactly.
I hope that was okay. Otherwise, follow-up question, please. Also, if you have a concrete example, that would also make it easier for us to answer.
Yeah. Okay, so next question is the account for logging in the same as for projects in Interact 5 in the online monitoring system? And it's not. So you have a new project, you have new login details. If you do not already have a login and you know that you're a partner in a project, reach out to your lead partner, and the lead partner can then invite you to become user and to be linked with this project in terms of implementation. If you have a colleague that is already in the system and you work for the same organization, same project, and you need access, reach out to that colleague, then your colleague will be able to invite you. And then the next question, of course, is how do we do this? And I feel, we will go back to the same answer over and over again, but go to our website. There's a how-to guidance in terms of how you can actually invite other users.
Yeah, and if I may add, the system is fairly self-explanatory when you know where you have to look for certain aspects. And this whole inviting process, I would like to say it's like a snowball effect. So as Christopher said, the project manager is starting out with inviting certain partners, but then the partners can, invite colleagues. And what I have touched upon in the beginning is the authorized signatory and the controller, and they also need to be invited. So it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then we move on to the question, how and under which circumstances is it possible to report 0 on the first reporting period after 6 months?
Well, we argue that it's always possible to report a zero claim. However, we would strongly advise that you have a pretty good justification for why you have no cost to report. And one of our primary focuses is that in this program period, we are going to pay a lot of attention to your spending plan. So we're going to assess where are you in terms of your projected spending with what you are actually reporting to us. So of course, if you buy the first report, now it's just in theory, it's not going to be reality. If you have told us that you're going to have spent 100,000 euros by the first report, and we receive a report with a zero claim, we sort of need to know why is it that you could not fulfill your spending target. And also you might, in that extreme case, should consider if you actually need to update your spending plan. So I think it was a politician answer saying it's all about of the justification for when you report zero costs.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I just want to make that additional comment and highlight again that the first report, though, must include a financial claim. There's no way around it. Even if you can justify, there's no way around that, right? When will the OMS be available for reporting, and when will it be possible to submit technical changes? So again, twofold question.
Two questions, yeah.
I will answer the first one.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, that's we
are talking about reporting here, and I guess most of you are already in the system, in the module, doing your reporting. So the simple answer is the reporting module is open in the online monitoring system.
If there's an agreement with the advisor linked to the project, otherwise they will not see anything.
Correct, that is true. But in theory, the reporting system is open. So in case you don't have one, please approach your project advisor. And that's the simple answer, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next question is, or the linked question is, when we'll be able, can we get the other one? Sorry. It was a question on technical changes, when that is possible. So in terms of changes to the application form, all necessary changes is something that is being handled by the JS. We can make changes on behalf of you in your application form. We can also initiate changes where you will be invited to update the sections that are critical and necessary, for example, before you're contracted. In terms of having access to the change module, it's still in the testing phase. We want to be absolutely certain that the solutions that we deliver to our projects are the best possible setup that we can offer.
Yeah, I wanted to add something, but now I have forgotten what I wanted to add.
Can be that it will come back later.
Can be that it will come back later. No, I wanted to make an example just to be a bit clearer for all of you. So, for example, some of you might have a monitoring committee recommendation that you need to change certain parts of your intervention logic, of certain indicators. And these changes are really supposed to wait until what Christopher has announced. The system is absolutely bulletproof, ready for all sorts of changes, right?
Yeah, and I think when you say that, it's a good reminder. Of course, we're going to acknowledge and honor all of our commitments. So if you have already covered it with your project advisor and you have an agreement saying this is what we're going to change, but we will change it later on, then it's absolutely fine. And of course, we are going to respect that and honor that. So no worries. Just because it's not in the system, if we have an agreement, we do have an agreement.
Yes.
Bottom line.
Bottom line.
So I'm a lead partner in the 5B period. Our first level controller had to check our beneficial level report and the project level report. Do our controller have to do the same in the 6B period?
Good question.
Yeah. So for those of you that has been with us in the 5B period, there was this additional check by the controller of the lead partner. It could be seen a bit redundant because the check was actually just looking at had all of the controllers actually submitted their report. That additional check has been removed in the 6B period, meaning that we are looking at individual control reports. We see, okay, has all partners submitted their report? have all controller approve the finance reports, and by that is then the project level report submitted. So the responsibility is with the individual partners in terms of finance and the individual controller. There's no additional check by the controller of the lead partner. So next question.
How can I be upgraded from partner manager to project manager? We need to have 2 project manager accounts. Is it possible that a project can be owned by 2 managers?
So there's a difference here. It's absolutely fine to have several project level managers. I know it gets a bit technical here. The system facilitates that. Again, there's a process around this. Go find one of our tutorials on it. The second part of the question, can a project be owned by 2 managers? If we talk about project owners, so that is the one that actually started the application form and prepared it. It could also be that this ownership has actually been moved to another account. That's also fine, but there can only be one legit project owner in terms, or in technical terms at least.
So one owner, several project managers.
Yeah, I think it's up to 5, and then as many partner managing user as you need. Stay below 100, I would say.
And I would like to make an additional comment that is only slightly related here. I would advise you to also have more than 1 authorized signatory per partner.
I think that's a strong advice.
Okay, a strong advice.
Yeah.
Because if someone, or if you are reporting and the report needs to be submitted to the lead partner, and then out of a sudden your authorized signatory is on leave or sick leave, or I don't know what, not available, let's put it like that, then it's good to have a backup.
Yeah.
Do we have a next question? Will all partners be able to access the indicator reporting module all the time, and not only when the report is open in the OMS? If so, can insert content whenever they want? Yes.
Indeed, they can. So the setup will be so that all partners can enter their contribution to fulfilling an indicator. And once a report is about to be submitted by the lead partner, then all of the entries relating to this report will be locked. So you can make no changes to that. But of course, in between reporting periods, you can edit all of the entries that you have made, and that goes across the entire project. So please be a team player, assist one another. You know which indicators to report on yourself. Huh?
Yeah. How? I will read it out.
Yeah.
Let's see who will answer. How will the partner level reports be compiled into the project level report? Both the activity report and the financial, manually, automatically. How will it look like in the OMS? I will answer the activity one. You will answer the finance one.
Take the easy one this time. Yeah.
The easy one. So in case of activity, when it comes to the lead partner to compile the report, then in several cases, the lead partner will see what the individual partners have reported. So basically, the lead partner can see an overview with what the partners have reported on. And then there is a text box. So the lead partner needs to basically read through these parts and then manually compile the input. Whereas when it comes to finances,
it's the system that accumulates all of the information, apart from the fact describing the overall deviation from where the project are in terms of financial implementation. But perhaps we can just touch upon when you said that it's the lead partner that writes everything together. What could be the benefit of having set up like that and not just having this automated function? Because a clear benefit is, of course, that it becomes more coherent. And we are coming back to what you actually started saying when we talked about reporting on indicator achievements, I think it was, that we of course want to have and experience a coherent project report. So it doesn't really help that 17 partners have just told us what they are doing. We need to know what you as a collaboration project are doing.
So in case of activity, the burden is on the lead partner to, I mean, the lead partner is always aware of what is happening, but to really see what the individual partners have reported and then compile in a concise, coherent way. And I just want to make an additional point, and that is referring again to the guidance. I'm sorry, but in the guidance, there are screenshots. And there's one screenshot I remember where you can see how it looks like this overview that the individual partners have reported, and then the text box for the lead partner. But yeah, that's how it works.
Is the outside program area tab no longer part of the finance report? That's absolutely true. There's nothing called outside the program area anymore. And the primary reason for that is that in the past, and now I know it's a history lesson, in the past we had a limitation saying that 20% of our funding could be spent outside of the program area. That limitation has vanished, disappeared when the new regulations was put together. And the primary reason for that is that we never came close to the 20%.
What's next? Ooh. Oh, I was about to say is nothing coming, but yes, there's something is coming. Is the use of an accounting system mandatory, or is it, for example, Excel enough?
That's a yes and no question. I would say, first of all, a spreadsheet, that is fair enough. The key here is that you have to have a really structured approach to how you are handling your accounts. And of course, it should be easily identifiable going back to the finance report. And then from the finance report that we can see, okay, this is a cost item, and then we can have a look, or not we, but your controller, the national controller, the EU auditors, or whomever is going to audit you at some point, that they can find the expenditure. So if you think that a spreadsheet is sufficient, and if the law in your member state allows it, then we have no intervention on it.
The next one. How do I find and appoint a controller? Yeah,
so we have various setups. Perhaps we should start with the easy one, right? The overarching easy one is that if you are located in Sweden, it's a national body that carries out all of the control. It's called Tillväxtverket, easy peasy. You think that you're going to appoint a controller, and you can choose randomly when you are in the system. You click designate controller, and then all of a sudden, there's two people to choose from. I designate the two, easy peasy. Then we have our French colleagues and our colleagues from Flanders. They have, and I think they're the only ones, they have a short list of controllers. So again, it's relatively easy. You log into the system, you start a designation, and then you can see a list of controllers that you can choose from. Then if you are located in Germany, in Denmark, in the Netherlands, then the choice is yours. You need to find a controller. In the past, we call it first level controller, a controller that is independent from what you're doing. If you are in Denmark, it cannot be from your own organization. If you are from the Netherlands, in some cases, an internal controller can be allowed. But again, I would argue that if you need more concrete advice, go and contact your national contact point. In the case of Denmark, reach out to me, for example, at the JS, because there's no national contact point. And in terms of the practicalities, just saying it again, go to our website. There is a how-to guidance in terms of how that you appoint controllers.
Just to add? Just to be even clearer, that the controller really needs to be in the online monitoring system. After they have been procured, for example, in Germany, you need to procure, in most cases, for a controller if you don't have an internal one. But they also need to be invited to be in the online monitoring system. So the whole reporting, what we are talking about, is taking place in the online monitoring system.
And also we know that the term controller can be slightly confusing, because it's also used as a regular function in all organizations that controllers are employed, but it is not what is meant here. Controller is, someone that is external to the project, and in most cases also external to the organization.
Then we have a next one. Is it obliged to have an FLC, so a controller it's called from now onwards, in the first report when the expenses of the controller, revisor in Denmark might exceed the expenses used in the project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always, you cannot submit any costs to the program if they have not been controlled. However, in a case like this, where you already now know that the expenditure for this control exceeds the value of what you're actually submitting to us, then I would strongly suggest that you report 0 in terms of cost in the first report, and then you save the cost so you have a larger amount to be controlled in the second report. And coming back to when I answered the other question in terms of justification, this is a really good and clear justification for why it makes no sense to report cost in the first report.
As long as there is a financial claim on project level, so other partners will claim finances.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Good. Then, can you share more about what information is needed in the reporting for state aid? I think I'll leave that.
Yeah. So there is 2 approaches here. First of all, we have state aid on partner level. So that is relating to activities, the direct activities that the partner is going to implement. So a partner can be under the GBER scheme or be a de minimis recipient. And in those cases, the partners do not have to do anything because it's the task of the JS to record how much that we have handed out in terms of both GBER and de minimis support. And we are going to assess that at application stage, and the correct state aid status has already been chosen for the partner before the project is contracted. So that is the direct state aid. In terms of indirect aid, that could, for example, be if a project is operating, a classical example, operating a voucher scheme, where some SMEs, they might have an advantage because, of course, a voucher scheme could be limited in scope, in scale, in terms of the finances available. So it will not be freely available to all SMEs. In those cases, we are going to ask you to record the so-called indirect state aid. And it's relatively easy. In the finance report, you're going to provide us with the name of the organization to whom you have provided this indirect aid. Remember, it has to be under the threshold for indirect aid. You can find that in our fact sheet on state aid. That's fact sheet number 16. We are going to ask you about the VAT number of this organization, the country in which the organization is located, and also the approximate value of the support that you have granted. And of course, if it's what I call it, a voucher scheme, for some voucher schemes, it's relatively tangible to assess how is the exact value of the voucher that we hand out. If it's a voucher scheme where it's the project itself that delivers the service, then it could be slightly more tricky. However, in all cases, you have to assess the value per organizations receiving this indirect aid. Relatively clear?
Relatively clear, although complex, but that's what is happening in reality.
Exactly.
So we have to deal with it, and there's a way for dealing with it. So
so if there are uncertainties still, reach out to your project advisor, and then we will handle it.
Yeah, definitely.
Will the lead beneficiary be able to access to the entries? Yeah, okay. I think the question here is, will the lead partner be able to see all of the finance report and what has been reported? And that is indeed the case. The lead partner has access to all finance reports, all activity reports, And it's really good that the question is being brought up here, because it relates to the GDPR elephant in the room.
Where is it?
Yeah, I imagine this big elephant with a GDPR logo on, but let's have a think about that. So of course, each partner should consider, how is it that you actually are label costs? Is it relevant that I, in my staff cost, say that Jenny Thompson with this or this phone number has received X amount of money? Or is it enough that I say, project advisor, one has had or received this amount of money? I think you should stick to being as concrete as possible, but without providing any details of individual employees.
Makes very good sense. Yeah.
Long answer to a relatively short question.
It was a very good answer, Christopher. Is it necessary to sign the partnership agreement before the reporting module is visible? I think the answer is no. I'm not sure I'm understanding. The reporting module is visible to you anyways. Your individual report will be visible to you when we or your project advisor will open a reporting round for you. And the deal is that the deal is in general that the partnership agreement must be signed as soon as possible. That's the main message here, and that no funds can be paid out if there's no signed partnership agreement. This is what you should keep in mind.
Yeah, exactly. And here Jenny is talking from experience. So there's absolutely no reason to wait having the partnership agreement signed, because we know that it takes longer than all of our projects have ever imagined. So, the sooner the better, as Jenny says, just get cracking on that procedure.
And we don't want to scare you off. We just want to say that I mean, all partners, also sub-partners, must sign this partnership agreement. So in most cases, there are more than 10-15 partners involved, and that can take a while. So that's the only reason why we are saying start as soon as possible. It's not complicated, but it's just a long process.
Yeah.
From Sweden, a question from Sweden, maybe to the Dane in the room.
Yeah. We have an expenditure in euro, but we should put in amounts in Swedish kronor in the monitoring system, and then it's converted to euros. Can we put in euro, or should we first convert it into Swedish kronor and then convert it back into? Yeah, okay, that's a complex exercise here. So the core is, you have to look at your bank account, and you have to look at, how is it defrayed from your bank account? So do you have a euro account? Then it's easy peasy. Then of course you report euros. If you have a bank account operating with Swedish kronor, then of course it is Swedish kronor that you're going to report to us with the applicable conversion rate in the monitoring system. And then I know the question then pops up, but our evidence might be from a travel, and that was in euros. That's correct. But when you paid that euro invoice, it was paid with Swedish kronor, because it was in fact defrayed from your bank account in Swedish kronor. So as a point of departure, I would argue that all Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish partners, they operate with local currencies, and that has to be converted into euros.
Good, I think.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Okay, here comes a twofold question as far as I can. I'll read it out, and then you have maybe the time to think about it, because I can see it's finances. Date of payment for staff costs. Is it the date when salary is paid, or the date when the staff time charge is accounted for the accounting system?
Yeah, that's an easy answer.
Okay.
Because it is the same answer to all cost-related questions. It is always the date of payment. If the cost has not been paid, you cannot report it to us. So, very simple.
Okay, then we move on.
Yeah.
The date of payment of travel costs. It's the same. Is it the date of payment by Visa card, or the date of reimbursement of the costs incurred by staff member?
When it leaves your bank account. So if it could be an expenditure that you need to reimburse to a member of staff, it is the date when you paid from your organization's bank account. I think
that's I think a good answer.
Yeah,
Fairly easy.
thanks.
And yeah, we hope that is also clear to all of you.
I represent the lead partner in a North Sea project. We are situated in Belgium. We prepared a mission letter concerning standard hourly rate for staff cost, with who we have to check this kind of evidence. Is there already some examples available for Belgium and Flemish partners, or does NS provide a fixed document? In this case, I would say, because we do operate with a separate fact sheet on staff cost for our colleagues from Flanders and Belgium. So reach out to the national contact point, national level authorities in Flanders and in Belgium, and they will be able to assist you answering this question more precise than I or we can.
Makes sense also. Is there more? That's the question. Yes, there is. When reporting staff costs, what date has to be entered? The date of entry or the 30th of June? 30th of June.
Yeah, I don't know what about that. I would say none of the two. And again, coming back to when it was paid.
Yeah. So I think this question has been answered already by what you have
exactly. So
mentioned earlier.
When you have paid your staff, that is the date that you can see from your bank account statement, and that is the date that should be entered into the monitoring system.
So when things are being paid.
Yeah.
That's the only thing to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, it's against staff costs. I'll read it out.
Yeah.
In our organization, we register hours for employees who are employed. May we also calculate the calculation, option 3, of employer costs per hour on the basis of 1,720 hours, and thus calculate the number of hours instead of a percentage per employee. That is also easier to check for an accountant.
And there's an easy answer to that, and that's a big no.
Uh-oh.
So it has been chosen by our member states that in this program period, there will be no such option for calculating the hourly rate. And the primary reason for that is that it went horribly wrong for a number of partners in the 5B. And I know a lot of you will say, no, we were good at it. It was easier. We were precise. That's fair enough. But more than half of all of the errors that was detected by the national auditors was linked to miscalculation of the hourly rate. So option 3 in the fact sheet on staff cost, it's very important to stress that it's only relevant for a very limited number of employees. That could be the classical examples as student workers, youth workers, and so forth. So, people that are employed with a contract where it says there is no defined number of hours that you're working, but per hour that you're working, you get X amount of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then for those ones, also remember the timesheets. Very important, isn't it?
Timesheets only relevant for option 3,
yes.
Exactly. So please, no calculation of hourly rate. Please. I think that, and perhaps another please. But
he's talking to you as a friend, so please follow the advice. How can you open a report? Easy. I mean, easy question for me, because it's easy for me to open the report for a project. How you as the lead partner can then open the report for your partners, it's also fairly easy, and it's very well, it doesn't make sense for me to explain here because it's, but there is a button in the OMS in the upper right corner, and it's really, really easy described in the guidance. So please go to the guidance on our website about, it's called Activity Reporting in the Online Monitoring System, where we have screenshots of that. So just open it and then you can follow the instructions there, because it's
and the same goes
self-explanatory.
And the same goes for finances. That also has to be started at project level first, and then partners can start the individual reports.
And to move even a little bit further, when we are talking about sub-partners, then the partner that is responsible for that sub-partner also must open the report for the individual sub-partner. So it's, again, the snowball effect we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take the next question. What happens when partners have not started activities yet? Is it sufficient to fill in not started yet?
Yes and no.
If there's nothing to report.
Yes and no. I would argue that if the application form foresees or had foreseen that you will work on a certain aspect and you have not started it, then it would be good to elaborate a little bit more. You always have to think about that. We as project advisors have to assess your progress. So the less that you provide, like only saying no, not started yet, then it will be tricky for us to follow, like to see, okay, they have not done anything, but then why? So there might be a reason why you have not started it. Or if there is something that is only supposed to be started in the 3rd year of the project, then you could also say it's supposed to start in the 3rd year, so we haven't done anything yet. So just think about applying common sense when filling out these text boxes so that it will be easy for someone external to understand what you fill out in that report.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Ben?
I'm new to our project. We have specific targets for the work packages. Do these spread out over time, and are these summing up for all partners? Does that mean all partners have chosen their specific target and will only report on those?
Tricky, easy question. I don't know. So in practice, you are all working together as a team and reporting that to the program. Then going back, what you have defined at application stage and which individual agreements you have made, like which partner will contribute to what, this is something that the lead partner coordinates. And then it's also on the lead partner at reporting stage to tell you that you as partner A is only supposed to report on, for example, work package 1, these kind of activities. Another partner who's not involved in that is, of course, not supposed to report on those. So this is actually, when it comes to activity reporting, a task on the lead partner to coordinate who will fill out what. And then in the end, as we have mentioned, the lead partner will compile the activity report, so on project level, and then that will be sent to the Joint Secretariat.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No, I think that covered it.
Very good. What is the difference in case of small-scale project reporting? Are midterm reports easier?
I would say you can always find arguments for and against something being easier. Clearly, for individual partners in the small-scale projects, it's easier because they do not have to submit any activity reports. It's only at the project level that a report on activity is submitted. It's only finance report per partner in the small-scale project that is needed.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's more difficult or easier, it's really hard to judge. It all depends on the type of organization, involvement, type of project, etc. But in all cases, we try to make it as easy as possible to our projects.
But maybe just to elaborate a bit, that the setup of the reporting is completely different from the regular projects, because in a small scale project, you have only this so-called midterm report, which is at the midterm of the implementation of the project, and final report. Is that what it's called? Final end report. So only 2 in total. Yeah.
That's our next question.
What if the controller is not ready with the validation of costs? Good question. By the report submission deadline? Do we exclude the related costs from the given claim?
Yeah, see, this is where it gets a bit tricky, and it's not by any means meant to be us being mean to our projects, but it is a collaboration project. So you need to be able to work together and have clear communication. So of course, it means that you will not experience that you miss a deadline due to a case like this, because you know in advance that a controller is not able to meet the deadline. You communicate that to your lead partner. The lead partner speaks with the designated advisor here at the JS. And then if possible, we extend the submission deadline. so that you have enough time. It's immensely important that you are on front with situations like this, meaning that you should not wait until the submission deadline to let your project advisor at the JS know that you're not going to meet it. But as soon as you have any complications arise, just gives a heads up to your advisor.
And I would like to add something, and that is in general, maybe for the newcomers out there, because I can read that some of you are new to the program, just to be very clear about it. So at some point there will be a so-called submission deadline that will be agreed between the program and the lead partner of a project. That will be in the system. And that is when the project level report must be submitted to the Joint Secretariat. However, each project is having an individual scheme, if I may put it, with deadlines, because, as we have explained, it's a rather long procedure. Each partner must submit his or her partner level report. Then we need the authorized signatory. We need the controllers involved. Then it needs to be submitted to the lead partner. And then, of course, the lead partner, as we have heard today, is supposed to compile, for example, the activity report. And the activity report is not as easy as the finance report. So it's not a job that can be done within 2 hours. It might take a little bit of time, and that's what the lead partner defines. So there's a long line of deadlines, maybe even before the project level report will be submitted to the Joint Secretariat.
Bottom line is that if you fail to let your advisor know ahead of time, you better have a really, really strong case for why you have missed the deadline. Let's have the next one.
What happens if partners have not sent the partnership agreement on time for the reporting period?
That is relatively simple, because the only thing that happens is that we wait reimbursing the project. So you can still submit the reports, you can do everything, but no reimbursement will be paid out to the project. And that is simply because that the partnership agreement also handles and touches upon liabilities within the project consortium. So we need to be certain that you have considered what do you do in the extreme cases.
Yes. If a partner is not doing its job and not if a partner is not doing its job and not contributing, can we still submit the report for the rest?
First of all, I would say it's a project management obligation. So the project manager of the project needs to, of course, be as accommodating and making sure that this project is being implemented to the best of its abilities. In the extreme cases, reach out to your advisor at the JS and then involve us, and we can consider if there's something we can do together.
And do it on time and not last minute, please. We have one more about, let's see, about staff costs. For staff costs, we use option 2, which asks for a document that sets out the percentage of time to be used on project. From that moment, are the staff costs... From what moment are the staff costs eligible? Start project or date of sign letter?
Oh, that can be a yes and no. So first of all, the mission letter or this letter that is being talked about here has to be put in place before cost eligible for project implementation is incurred. That is not the same as necessarily the start of the project. And eligibility date actually goes back to when your project was approved. So you could, in theory, have a starting date that is slightly later than the approval date of your project, but in fact, your eligibility date of cost is from when your project was approved. So have these letters and these documents signed and prepared in advance of any staff starting incurring costs related to the project. So we have 10 questions left. Time is now 1100. I think what we will do now is that we will continue the recording, and of course that will be put online, so you know that we are also stopping to receive new questions. So what we'll do is we will continue the reporting. We'll then answer the next 10 questions, and then you can find all of the answers in the recording.
Yes, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
So let's see what our next question is about. If a project partner claims zero costs in reporting period, who explains why? Lead partner or project partner? Is there a way for the project partner to hand down the why to the lead partner through the OMS?
Yeah, that is in both cases. So first of all, in each finance report per partner, then if there's zero claim, then you have to provide an explanation for why is it that you do not report any costs. That is not automatically carried over to the lead partner and to the project level report, because again, like with activities, this is where we have the combined overview of the entire project. So if it's relevant, and it's always relevant when you have a partner that is deviating because they report zero cost, the lead partner should provide an explanation also in the project level report.
In the report, yeah, exactly. I think that's important to know. Again, a partner will claim zero because of not having a controller yet. Will this partner be able to open and submit a finance report in the OMS?
Yes, so if you submit a zero claim, you do not need to have a controller verifying the finance report. And hence you can submit it without the control check.
Yes. Easy. What is sequence number and internal reference number?
So that relates to your own accounts. And it varies a lot from organization to organization, if it's letters, if it's numbers, if it's a mix, or how this unique identifier is constructed. And that is what we're talking about. It's a unique identifier, so it's possible for a controller, national controller, to pinpoint saying, okay, this cost for 1,000 euros on staff costs with this reference number, I can find in the accounts of the organization, and then I can see that it's the same number, it's matching, and there's a clear link. I hope that was...
It's basically method to helping our partners, right? To our organizations to...
What about controller in Norway? The same as Sweden?
Yeah, it's because you haven't mentioned Norway. When you were talking about the countries, you were missing out on Norway. Yeah. I think that's where the question comes from. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I was quite certain that I had mentioned Norway, because in Norway, it's like in Denmark and in Germany, you need to find your own controller. Yeah.
And as in the Netherlands also.
As in the Netherlands.
For example,
True.
we don't want to miss
that.
out on another country. Yeah. Okay, next one. Is participation by a SME in a workshop organized by a partner considered as indirect state aid? Can you give example of indirect state aids?
That can be a yes or no question again, because the matter is if it's open to all SMEs. So if there's no constraints to how many SMEs that you can have participating in this workshop, then it's not qualified as indirect aid. If you need to limit it, and by doing so exclude some SMEs from this important knowledge that you're going to deliver, then it is considered indirect aid for the ones that you have invited in the end to the workshop.
So the solution is always to open it up to every relevant.
But there's of course a natural limit to how many SMEs perhaps that you can have on board.
But that would be a way of minimizing the risk.
Yeah.
Are expenses of first period, if small, locked if claiming zero, or can it be claimed later?
I think the question here is that if you do not report anything in the first reporting round, what about all of the costs that you could have reported in that first reporting round? Of course, you're going to include that in the following reporting round. That is no issue. Of course, the lead partner is on the project level defining that you as a project are reporting costs between this period and this period. However, I would strongly argue that if you are, as an individual partner, are including costs that relates to a previous reporting round, just put in a note about it in your report that you are including these costs. It's not an issue, but just be open about it.
And let's see if the PDF explaining the
In the PDF explaining the financial reporting in the OMS, it is mentioned on page 10. Okay, I do not recall what it says at page 10, that for staff costs, the minimum to provide is per staff function. Please confirm that there is no need then to provide entries per person per month. Well, that is correct, that we encourage that you do it per function. But again, we also have to consider when is the expenditure paid, because there's a payment date. So just because there's a function, let's call it project management, there might be several installments going to the same individuals with carrying the title project management. Create one entry as a minimum per payment. It also enables you to better link it back to your accounting system, saying, okay, in the month of May, we paid this much to the project manager, and we know who that is in our organization, and then we can backtrack it like that if needed be.
You must have reached 10 already. No, there's one more. Is it fine to have staff with mixed contracts, of course, hired in the organization? So one is on fixed percentage and one is on hourly rate.
Yes, but I always get concerned, when it says hourly rate, because that, hourly rate, yeah, if it's fixed in the employment contract, fair enough. Mixed contracts, I hope that I understand it correctly, that it's not for one individual, but it's, we have several employees where, one is on fixed time, another is not. In that case, of course it is, because, it's reality, it's how your organization works. Just make sure that you have read our fact sheet on staff cost and follow the instructions in there.
What if the annex for staff cost is apparently very important here. What if the annex for staff costs stating the fixed percentage is signed later than the start of the project? We have had this question already.
Yeah, but not precise as this, but actually then the cost before the date of signing this letter is not considered eligible. So that is a risky approach. And a controller, your controller might be kind enough to say it's fine, but I would strongly advise against having a setup like this, because reality is that when a national controller comes by, or again, the EU controllers, they come by, they will deem this cost ineligible. So again, as we said earlier, make sure that you have these letters, these documents signed before you actually start encouraging costs. Incurring, not encouraging.
No, encouraging. Maybe the last one, staff costs and date of payment. I get paid each month.
That's nice.
So I did not understand which date I have to write down in the online monitoring system.
Then you have to create an entry per month, because again, you can look at the, your bank account for the organization. You can see on which date that the amount for your monthly salary was defrayed, and that is the date. And meaning, again, if you have, broad terms, a reporting round covering 6 months, I would expect to see 6 entries for one staff function.
So every time something is paid, something or someone is paid.
Yeah.
Very good. On that happy note,
that was all of the questions so far. We are quite certain there will be more questions. We hope that we answered the ones that was most important and most critical for you. And we are super excited and happy to see how many of you that participated in this Q&A webinar. And we look forward to see you at another time.
And good luck with your reports. And in case you have further questions, please reach out to your project advisors at the Joint Secretariat.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.